All right, let's dive into the life of a true trailblazer. Today we're going to uncover the story of Mary Ann Rawson, a woman who dedicated her life to, battling injustice in 19th century England.
Mm,
She was born in 1801
mm.
and passed away in 1887. So her life kind of spanned a period of immense social change. And her actions really played a significant part in shaping that change.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what's fascinating about her is that she was born into a family that, I mean, they could have easily chosen a life of comfort, privilege,
Right,
you know,
right.
but instead they instilled in her this really deep sense of social responsibility.
So paint a picture for me. What was her family like?
Well, her family was deeply rooted in the industrial heartland of Sheffield.
Mm.
Her father owned a smelting works, and her mother's family, they ran an iron foundry. So this wasn't just about wealth. It was about understanding the plight of the working class and recognizing the inequalities in society.
Right, so it sounds like her upbringing really shaped her worldview. It wasn't just inheriting wealth, but inheriting that sense of duty to make things better.
Exactly. It laid the groundwork for her lifelong commitment to social justice. And one of her most significant contributions was to the abolitionist movement.
Okay, let's talk about that. So I understand she co-founded the Sheffield Female Anti-Slavery Society in 1825. And what strikes me is the word female in the name. It feels so deliberate, especially for that time period.
Oh, it was absolutely deliberate. In the 19th century, women were largely expected to stay out of politics, social reform. So by calling themselves the Female Anti-Slavery Society, they were challenging those norms, carving out a space for women's voices in the movement.
So they were making a statement right from the start. This wasn't just about ending slavery. It was about women's right to participate in shaping a more just world. What kind of activities did the society engage in?
They were incredibly active. They organized lectures, distributed pamphlets. Think of it as kind of the 19th century version of going viral on social media. And they encouraged boycotts of goods produced by slave labor.
Boycotts. What kind of goods?
The big ones were sugar and coffee. Imagine trying to convince people to give up their morning cup of coffee for a cause. It speaks to their dedication and the power of their message.
Yeah, it sounds like they understood the power of hitting people where it hurt in their daily habits. That's smart organizing. But their work wasn't limited to Sheffield, was it?
Not at all. Rawson was a master networker. She corresponded with major figures in the abolitionist movement, both in Britain and across the Atlantic. We're talking George Thompson, a prominent British abolitionist, and even Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison in America.
Wow, so she was connecting with some of the most influential voices of the time. That's impressive.
And this network wasn't just virtual. It extended to Rawson's personal life. Her home, Wincobank Hall, became a central meeting place for key figures in the abolitionist movement.
Wait, so she was hosting these heavy hitters in her own home. That's amazing. I mean, can you imagine the conversations that must have taken place within those walls?
Think about it. William Wilberforce, a leading figure in the British Parliament who fought tirelessly for abolition, and Lord Shaftesbury, a social reformer who championed the rights of the working class, they were among those who gathered at her home. These were individuals who were shaping the course of history, and they saw her as a vital ally.
So she was more than just the supporter. She was like a strategic convener, bringing together these bright minds and passionate advocates to strategize and advance the movement. I mean, that's a level of influence that's hard to fathom, especially for a woman in that era.
And it's even more remarkable when you consider what happened at the 1840 World Anti-Slavery Convention in London.
What happened?
Well, women were barred from speaking at the event. Can you believe that? The irony is almost too much to handle.
It's infuriating to be so committed to a cause that aims to dismantle injustice and then be silenced by that same system.
Exactly. But Rawson, along with other female activists, refused to be sidelined. They attended the convention, making their presence known, sending a powerful message that women's voices mattered.
So even in the face of, blatant discrimination, they found a way to make their presence felt. That must have taken a lot of courage.
It did. It speaks to the strength and determination of these women. They understood that their presence itself was a form of protest, a challenge to the status quo. They were demanding to be seen, heard, and acknowledged.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes just showing up can be an act of defiance. But what I find even more impressive is that her work wasn't confined to abolition. It seems like she had her hands in all sorts of social justice initiatives.
You're right. Her commitment to social justice extended far beyond the fight against slavery.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, she was active in the Tract Society, which focused on distributing religious literature.
Hold on. For those of us who aren't familiar, what exactly is a tract society?
Essentially, they were organizations dedicated to spreading religious teachings by distributing pamphlets and booklets. It was a popular form of evangelism in the 19th century.
Okay, so she was involved with those groups.
Yes, and she was also deeply involved with the British and Foreign Bible Society.
So we're seeing a religious thread running through her activism.
Yeah, it's definitely a significant aspect of her life. It seems her faith was a driving force behind her passion for social justice. But it didn't stop there. She was involved in a movement for Italian nationalism.
Italian nationalism, now that's unexpected. Tell me more about that. What drew her to that cause?
So this is where we see the interconnectedness of her beliefs. Remember, this is the 19th century, and Italy as we know it today didn't exist. It was divided into separate states. The movement for Italian unification was gaining momentum. And Rawson, with her deep-seated belief in freedom and self-determination, likely saw parallels between the struggles of Italians for unification and the fight against slavery. She saw the inherent injustice in people being denied their right to self-governance and freedom.
So she was connecting the dots between different social movements, recognizing that the fight for justice transcended national borders.
Exactly. And this wasn't just theoretical support. She actively campaigned for Italian unification, likely through her writing and correspondence. It shows how her vision of a just world extended beyond her immediate surroundings.
It's almost like she was a century ahead of her time, embracing a global perspective on social justice.
And her commitment to social reform didn't stop there. She also passionately opposed child labor.
Of course. It makes perfect sense, giving her dedication to fighting for the vulnerable and marginalized.
It fits perfectly within her framework of advocating for those who couldn't advocate for themselves. And on top of all of this, she compiled and published an anthology in 1834 called The Bow and the Cloud, or the Negro's Memorial.
What was the purpose of that anthology?
It was a collection of writings advocating for the abolition of slavery in the British colonies. This wasn't just about sharing her own views. It was about amplifying the voices of others who are passionate about the cause, creating a platform for diverse perspectives within the movement.
That's brilliant. She recognized that a movement gains strength from the collective voices of those it seeks to empower. So she was organizing, advocating, writing, and compiling works for social change. It's astounding how much she accomplished.
It really is. But there's one more aspect of her work that I think is particularly fascinating. It seems that for all her public activism, she also held a deep belief in the power of education. You know, it's remarkable how Rawson, living in a world where slavery was so far removed from her daily life, managed to cultivate this deep understanding and empathy for the suffering of enslaved people.
It really makes you wonder how she bridged that distance, how she fostered that sense of shared humanity across continents.
Well, one way she did this was through those pamphlets we talked about. They weren't just dry recitations of facts and figures. They were filled with vivid accounts of the horrors of slavery, stories that would have resonated deeply with readers.
So they were using storytelling as a tool for social change?
Exactly. They understood the power of personal narratives to evoke empathy and inspire action. And remember, this was long before photography and film, so these pamphlets were a way to bring the reality of slavery into people's homes.
They make it impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what kind of impact did these pamphlets have on public opinion?
Well, it's hard to measure precisely, but we know they were widely circulated, and they played a significant role in shaping public discourse.
And this focus on storytelling, on humanizing the issue, likely explains why Rawson connected so strongly with someone like Frederick Douglass.
Absolutely. Douglass, with his powerful oratory and first-hand accounts of slavery, was a master storyteller himself. And their correspondence reveals this deep mutual respect and a shared commitment to using their voices.
It's a testament to the power of shared purpose, even across geographical boundaries. Makes me wonder how Rawson navigated the inevitable pushback. Challenging the status quo rarely goes unchallenged, especially when powerful interests are at stake.
You're right. She faced opposition from those who benefited from the slave trade, who saw her activism as a threat.
So what form did this opposition take?
Well, we have to remember the social context. Women who stepped outside of their prescribed roles often faced ridicule, social ostracism. Some may have even faced threats.
But she persisted.
She did. She knew she was on the right side of history.
It's incredible to think about the courage it must have taken to stand up to those in power.
Yeah.
Especially in a society that sought to limit women's voices. Did she ever express any fear or doubt in her writings?
While we can't know her innermost thoughts, her actions and writings suggest an unwavering commitment. She clearly understood the risks, but she prioritized the pursuit of justice.
That's inspiring. And she wasn't alone in this fight.
Right.
She had this incredible network of supporters.
Exactly. Social movements are rarely the work of one person. They thrive on collective action. And Rawson was a master at building and nurturing these networks.
Her home became a hub. It's fascinating to think about Wincobank Hall as this epicenter of social change, with people from all walks of life.
It really underscores how personal spaces can become catalysts for social movements, these informal gatherings. Fueled by passion and shared ideals, they often lay the groundwork for larger-scale societal transformations.
So it wasn't just about formal organizations and public demonstrations. It was about these intimate, personal connections that fostered a sense of solidarity.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about abolition either. As we discussed, she was involved in a wide range of causes.
So she wasn't just fighting for one specific group or issue. She was fighting for a more just and equitable world for everyone.
It does. It highlights the importance of intersectionality, understanding how different forms of oppression are interconnected.
Rawson seemed to grasp this concept, seeing the common threads that linked struggles against slavery, poverty, lack of education, limitations placed on women.
And this brings us to the question of her legacy. What lasting impact did she have?
I'm intrigued.
Well, for one, there's the school that she and her sister, Emily Reed, founded in 1841. It wasn't just about providing education, it was about empowering future generations.
That's a powerful legacy.
And then there's the example she set, the inspiration she continues to provide. Her story is a powerful reminder that one person can make a difference. It's a testament to the power of empathy, courage, and unwavering dedication.
So it's not just about her specific accomplishments, it's about the values she embodied, the way she lived her life. Her story challenges us to ask ourselves, what are we passionate about? What injustices do we see? And what are we doing to address them?
Yeah, it's incredible to think that one woman, living in a time when societal expectations tried to confine her to, the domestic sphere, could leave such a lasting mark on the world.
Right. Her story really challenges us to rethink what's possible.
I keep coming back to this idea of empathy as her driving force.
Yeah.
It's almost like she had this unique ability to connect with people on a human level, make them see the world through her eyes. That's a powerful observation. And her empathy wasn't just a feeling, it was a catalyst for action. She didn't just sympathize, she channeled that empathy into tangible efforts.
It's like she understood that empathy without action is incomplete.
Exactly. That's a crucial lesson we can all take away. It's a call to examine our own lives.
Yeah.
To ask ourselves, what are we passionate about? Where do we see injustice? And how are we turning our empathy into action?
It's about recognizing that we all have that potential to be agents of change, regardless of our circumstances. Rawson's story reminds us that even small acts of courage, when, multiplied across communities and generations, can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix things. It's about taking ownership and finding our own ways to contribute.
So what would you say is the most significant takeaway for our listener? What can we learn from Mary Ann Rawson's life, that we can apply to our own lives?
Well, I think her story encourages us to embrace our own empathy, as a source of strength and motivation. It reminds us that we don't have to be in positions of power or have vast resources to make a difference. It's really about the willingness to step outside of our comfort zones, to challenge things, advocate for what we believe in.
It's about finding our own unique ways to contribute, whether it's through volunteering, speaking out, or just having those courageous conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And recognizing that social change is a long game. It takes persistence, resilience, belief in the possibility of a better future.
Well, I'm leaving this deep dive feeling really inspired by Mary Ann Rawson's life.
It's been a privilege to explore her story with you.
To our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey into the life of Mary Ann Rawson. We hope you've gained valuable insights and a renewed sense of the power we all possess to make a difference. Remember, the world needs your empathy, your passion, and your action. Go out there and be the change you want to see.